China, 1949. From Peking's Tiananmen Square, Communist leader Mao Zedong proclaims the establishment of the People's Republic of China, a new era for the country, the Chinese Communist Party, and Chairman Mao himself. He has devoted his life to revolution and to his dream of transforming China. Now is his moment. Mao's government refers to itself as a people's democratic dictatorship, but democracy is not on the agenda. At the heart of the government is the Central Committee, consisting of about 100 senior party members. Above that sits the 12-member Politburo, and within that, the powerful Politburo Standing Committee, where true authority lies. Among its 5 members are Liu Shaoqi, a veteran labor organizer and vice chairman of the Communist Party, educated in Moscow; Zhou Enlai, a revolutionary hero and now Mao's loyal supporter, who will serve as China's first premier and foreign minister; and Mao himself, the unchallenged paramount leader at 55 years old. Though not a natural orator, Mao is a charismatic figure with deep intellectual insight, shrewd political instincts, and powerful writing. Since 1938, he has been married to Jiang Qing, a former actress known for her fierce loyalty to Mao and disdain for his rivals. After years of war and revolution, China is impoverished and in desperate need of reform. The Communist Party moves quickly to implement its vision, heavily inspired by Soviet models. Approximately 10,000 Soviet advisors arrived to assist with reconstruction. This time, China is still predominantly an agrarian society. Every 5th person on Earth is a Chinese peasant. These peasants had long supported the communist movement due to promises of land reform. Now, those promises are implemented nationwide. Rural landowners, long dominant over the countryside, are vilified and publicly tried. Over 1 million are executed, and their lands are seized and redistributed. Within 3 years, 300 million peasants receive land for the first time. Early reforms also reshape society in other ways. New laws improve women's rights, simplified Chinese characters are introduced to combat low literacy, and mass propaganda campaigns educate and indoctrinate the population in communist ideology. The regime also begins rooting out suspected counter-revolutionaries, nationalist sympathizers, corrupt officials, and capitalists. Many are imprisoned, stripped of property, or forced to commit suicide. Hundreds of thousands suffer on the world stage. China finds itself isolated. The Western powers continue to recognize Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government in Taiwan as China's legitimate rulers. So Mao turns to the Soviet Union. In late 1949, he travels to Moscow for talks with Stalin. Their relationship is tense, but in February 1950, they sign a treaty of friendship, unlocking military and economic aid at home. The communist regime works to reassert control over China's outer regions. In 1949, the PLA reoccupies Xinjiang. In 1951, it annexes Tibet, calling the takeover a peaceful liberation. Though the Dalai Lama remains in place initially, power increasingly shifts to the central government. Taiwan remains a flashpoint. Both the communists and the nationalists claim to be China's sole legitimate government. Meanwhile, in 1950, a major war erupts nearby, the Korean War. North Korea invades South Korea, and US-led UN forces push the North back to the Yalu River, near the Chinese border. Fearing a US invasion and wanting to aid its ally, China enters the war with over 1 million troops. UN forces retreat, and a stalemate forms along the 38th parallel. In 1953, an armistice is signed. For Mao, the war is a success. China has resisted US power and affirmed its leadership of global socialism. But the cost is enormous, over 3 million lives lost, including Mao's own son, Mao Anying. The war also brings a US trade embargo on China and solidifies American support for Taiwan. Nonetheless, in 1953, China launches its first 5-year plan, modeled on the Soviet Union's economic strategies. With Soviet aid, China rapidly expands its heavy industry and infrastructure. Coal, iron, and steel production surpass targets, and China becomes a major oil producer to improve agriculture. The government encourages the formation of cooperatives, large farming collectives. By 1956, 80% of rural households belong to such cooperatives. These not only aim to increase output but also deepen communist control over rural life. That same year, Mao encourages open criticism with the slogan, "Let 100 flowers bloom, let 100 schools of thought contend." But when criticism flows in from intellectuals and scientists, the regime cracks down. The anti-rightist campaign that follows purges at least 500,000 people, subjecting them to humiliation, labor, or execution. Deng Xiaoping, then 52, becomes one of the campaign's key enforcers and a rising star in the party. In 1958, Mao launches the Great Leap Forward, an ambitious plan to create a socialist utopia by rapidly boosting industrial and agricultural output. People's communes are formed, private kitchens are banned, and backyard furnaces pop up everywhere to produce steel. But reality diverges from ambition. Local officials falsify harvest data to please superiors, leading to excessive grain being requisitioned by the state, leaving peasants to starve. Simultaneously, agricultural output plummets due to mismanagement, poor weather, and unrealistic policies. The result is catastrophic. An estimated 45 million people die in what becomes one of the worst man-made famines in history. Entire communes perish. By 1959, internal criticism emerges. Defense Minister Peng Dehuai challenges Mao at a party conference, only to be removed and placed under house arrest. Mao remains unrepentant, but as the crisis deepens, he is eventually forced to step back from day-to-day leadership. In 1961, more pragmatic leaders like Liu Shaoqi, Zhou Enlai, and Deng Xiaoping begin to reverse some of Mao's policies. Communes are downsized, private plots return, and food production stabilizes. Though the party maintains tight control over all aspects of life. In parallel, China adopts Pinyin, a new phonetic alphabet, to aid literacy. Foreign spellings of Chinese place names begin to change. Peking becomes Beijing, Canton becomes Guangzhou, and so on. These changes are slowly adopted both inside China and abroad. Despite internal chaos, Mao remains assertive internationally. In 1958, he orders shelling of nationalist-held islands in the Taiwan Strait. The US threatens nuclear retaliation, and only diplomacy prevents escalation. Soviet Premier Khrushchev is outraged by Mao's recklessness, further souring Sino-Soviet relations. Ideological differences deepen. Mao views Khrushchev's denunciation of Stalin as betrayal. The two leaders never meet again after 1959. That same year, a revolt erupts in Tibet. Chinese forces suppress it brutally. The Dalai Lama and 80,000 Tibetans flee to India. Tibet comes under direct Chinese rule. In 1962, border tensions with India erupt into war. China wins and seizes disputed territory. The Soviets back India, signaling the complete breakdown of the Sino-Soviet alliance. Nevertheless, China continues building independent capabilities. In 1958, it opens the University of Science and Technology in Beijing. By 1964, China tests its first atomic bomb. 2 years later, it develops a thermonuclear device, joining the elite club of nuclear powers and declaring a no-first-use policy. China now stands alone as a formidable global power. But for Mao and the Communist Party, the next great struggle lies within, against their own people.